We're here regarding the nomination of Stuart Hurowitz to the Chief Justice of the District Court. And I'll start by reading a letter submitted by the governor dated October 16th, 2024. Dear councilors, I am pleased to nominate Stuart M. Hurowitz to the position of Associate Justice of the District Court. I submit this nomination for advice and consent of the Executive Council pursuant to Part 2, Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and enclosing the nominee resume for your convenience. Sincerely, Maura T. Healy. And with that, we have it moved away. Attorney Hurowitz. Good afternoon. Good afternoon for being here. We're going to get started. If it sounds good to you, with your witnesses. And so I note that two folks, Judge Guzman as well as Attorney John Static, were intending to be here originally and are unable to be here for scheduling reasons, but both want to note their support. And so who will you be calling for your first witness?
So first, I'd like to call Attorney Wednes.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, honorable members of this council, I'm pleased to testify before you today in support of Attorney Stuart Hurowitz and his nomination as a justice of the district court. I first met Stuart in 2019. I was a newly hired attorney with the Committee for Public Counsel Services and in Boston for training. Attorney Hurowitz was presenting on the most gripping of topics, the rules of criminal procedure. Despite the dryness of that subject, I found Attorney Hurowitz to be engaging and interesting in his presentation. And while cleaning my office recently, I came across some notes from that day. I found scribbled in a margin that Attorney Hurowitz seemed like a natural teacher. And I had a note that said, I wonder what it would be like teaching something more interesting. I couldn't be more surprised, or less surprised really, when I later found out that Attorney Hurowitz engaging and intelligent, qualities that I continue to observe during office trainings and case discussions throughout my many years working with him. I've been fortunate that my office sits within roughly 30 feet of Stuart's since the beginning of my time with CPCS. Such close proximity has allowed first-hand observation of skills and attributes that make Attorney Hurowitz a fantastic nominee. I observed his compassion as he worked with both clients navigating the legal system and attorneys struggling with legal issues or personal matters. Stuart is always one of the first to lend a listening ear and words of comfort and encouragement. Attorneys both in and out of our office seek him out for his intelligent and thoughtful advice. I cannot think of any bar association event that I've attended with him over the past 6 years, where other attendees have not asked him either advice on legal or ethical issues. Yet the most important takeaway that I will cherish from my time working with Attorney Hurowitz was his gentle reminders not to lose myself in the stress of the work, and remember to find moments of fun and brevity amid the chaos and the stress. Attorney Hurowitz sat with me during my very first trial. My supervisor at the time was unable to attend, and Stuart agreed to be there for me. I remember my nervousness, the panic of having possibly forgotten something, or the fear that I missed some critical piece of evidence that would ruin my client's defense. Stuart sat with me outside the courtroom and asked me to simply tell him the story of why my client was not guilty. It was a simple exercise, but his patience and advice helped to center him. His calmness and temperament put me at ease and helped focus my mind, and his demeanor helped instill in me the confidence that I could ensure my client the fair trial she deserved. All traits I know Attorney Hurowitz can take with him to the bench if confirmed. Most recently, Attorney Hurowitz demonstrated impeccable leadership during the tragic passing of our friend and colleague, Adrian Angus, in the office. His calls to each person in the office demonstrated presence of mind, compassion, and empathy that helped all of us, both in the office and the broader legal community, to process this deep personal and professional loss. I tell each of these stories because they demonstrate similar stories you would hear from the broader legal community in Worcester County and likely other places that Attorney Hurowitz practiced. When asking members of the Worcester legal community what words or traits would best describe Stuart, I heard time and time again: intelligence, supportiveness, compassionate, and empowering. I could not agree more with these assessments, and I cannot think of qualities more desirable in a trial court judge. I'm proud to support this nomination as a friend. I'm honored to testify on his behalf as a colleague, and I fully encourage this council to confirm his nomination as a justice of the Massachusetts District Court. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Attorney. Any questions from counselors or witness? Yes, Councilor Jacobs.
I just wanted to, for both of you to give my entrance guard name. They are paid the nominee for a short time and it was clear that they didn't. There's one expect that too.
Thank you, Counselor. I know I had the chance to memorialize Attorney because in this chamber recently, and I know that we'd be very thrilled about this nominee as well as now Superior Court Justice Sarah Hamilton. So thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate it.
Next, I'd like to call Assistant District Attorney Lisa Casella.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and honorable members of this council. My name is Lisa Casella, and it is my distinct honor to speak with you this afternoon and support Stuart Hurowitz' nomination for judicial appointment as an Associate Justice of the District Court. I've been an attorney licensed to practice in Massachusetts for 30 years. I've been a prosecutor with the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, a defense attorney in private practice, and currently I am an assistant district attorney in Worcester County assigned to prosecute cases, including homicides and Superior Court. I give you this background because in my 30 years of practice, I have worked with hundreds of attorneys and practiced before hundreds of judges in the juvenile, district, and superior courts. I believe that the most respected and qualified attorneys possess certain qualities, namely an expert knowledge of local law and procedure, an ability to interact well with counsel and the court, and to treat other attorneys, court staff, and their clients respectfully and with professionalism, courtesy, compassion, and empathy. These are qualities that also make for a great judge, one who is expert in the law, with an ability to treat all those who appear before the court professionally, respectfully, and fairly. I can with certainty say that Attorney Hurowitz has all of these qualities. Attorney Hurowitz and I were talking about how long we've known each other, and we believe we first met in the early 2000s when he was a staff attorney with the Boston Trial Unit of the Committee for Public Counsel Services, and I was in the Suffolk DA's office. In 2010, Attorney Hurowitz and I began having cases together in Worcester Superior Court. Over the past 14 years, he and I have had many cases together in both the Superior and District Courts, and we also supervise new attorneys in our respective offices. When Attorney Hurowitz represents a client on one of my cases, I know that he will be a worthy opponent, and in addition, will always be exceptionally well prepared and professional. As you are all aware, our Superior Courts handle the most serious cases that pass through the Massachusetts court system. The district courts are exceptionally busy with very crowded dockets. In these high stakes and high pressure environments, I cannot remember a single instance of Attorney Hurowitz losing his cool. He appears daily in these courts, well prepared to address the court, well versed in the law, and having a plan on how to best approach each case. But in addition to that preparedness, he is professional, friendly to court staff, cordial to colleagues, and despite some stressful days, always keeps a level head. I have personally seen him engage with clients, and he always treats them respectfully. On a personal note, he also has a terrific sense of humor. I am certain that these qualities that Attorney Hurowitz possesses that make him an excellent attorney, namely tremendous legal experience, knowledge of the law and procedure, exceptional professionalism, courtesy, and compassion, will also make him an excellent judge. And in addition to the Massachusetts judiciary, I'm honored today to support his nomination.
Thank you, Attorney. Are there any questions from the council?
Have you seen him interact with, I'm looking at his list of supporters here. I don't see a lot of law enforcement people listed. Have you seen him interact with police chiefs and law enforcement personnel?
In the capacity, if they are called as witnesses in cases or called to testify, motions to suppress and the like, certainly I've seen him interact with law enforcement witnesses. Again, always very respectful, polite, I would not say that he is overly aggressive in any way. Very cordial, I would say to the witnesses that I've seen him interact with.
I spent 30 years in law enforcement and I was chief of police and just curious, I'm glad to see that you're here today and have a high regard for him. So thank you for your service and thank you for coming here today.
Thank you, sir.
Right?
Thank you, Counsel. Counsel Kennedy.
It was good to see you. I want to see you on that seat though.
Well, I
Soon.
gladly
I'm
accept.
sending a message to the people behind me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counsel. Any further questions? Thank you very much for being here this afternoon. We appreciate your testimony. Before we hear from you, I just want to introduce the council formally. We have Councilor Joseph Ferreira.
Good afternoon.
Councilor Marilyn Tito Denani. Councilor Christopher Iannella stepped out but is here with us today for the hearing. Councilor Eileen Duff, Councilor Terrence Kennedy, and Councilor Tara Jacobs. So I leave it to you if you'd like to introduce the folks that you brought with you today, and then if you have a statement to offer to council before we begin.
Thank you. I'll introduce them during my remarks.
Very well.
Good afternoon, members of the Governor's Council. Thank you for reviewing my credentials and devoting the time to meeting with me today, as well as the great conversations I had with many of you before today. I understand and appreciate the important work you do to be certain that we have well-qualified judges sitting in the Commonwealth. Thank you to Governor Healy and Lieutenant Governor Driscoll for doing me the great honor of nominating me. Thank you to Chief Legal Counsel H. Scott Reed and Deputy Legal Counsel Darrell Kesselheim for all your help through this process. Thank you to Governor McCarthy and her team for your help as well. Thank you to the members of the Judicial Nominating Commission for all your hard work and diligence. Thank you to my speakers, Ben Ennington and Lisa Casella, for your kind words. Thank you to Councilor DePalo for being supportive of me throughout this process. And thank you to everybody else who took time to offer me words of advice or support, especially my colleagues at the CPCS Worcester Public Defender Division. I learned so much from you all and consider you all lifelong family members. Especially thank you to my family. I tell everyone my favorite and most important titles are husband and dad. I would not be the person I am without the support and love of my best friend and love of my life, Debbie, and my wonderful, brilliant children, Max and Sophia. I am so very proud of the two of them, and I'm continually excited to watch them both grow into their bright futures. So, members of the council, as thrilling as this experience is for me, there is an element of it being bittersweet. There are two people I wish could have shared this with me. As we noted, my colleague and friend Adrian Angus died way too early, too young last month. And he did hope for this almost as much as I did. And my father Benjamin, who died in May, he would love seeing this. I directly attribute my enjoyment in connecting with people to my father and mother. Hopefully my mother has figured out how to stream YouTube at this point. I'm doubtful. My father was in advertising sales, and my mother ran a successful personnel agency. They both demonstrated the value of hard, honest work as they were able to move my brother and I from a tiny apartment in Queens to the middle class on Long Island. And the reason they were both very good at their jobs was because they each had this innate ability to befriend people, talk to them, and make them laugh. When I was old enough to join my father after work outings, I was always amazed at how he held everyone's attention. He told incredibly detailed stories, most of them entirely false, to keep people entertained. One summer, I even got to work with my mother's agency. Not having known my mother, if there was anything other than my mother at that point, really opened my mind. Watching her work with her employees and listening to her negotiate with attention to clients drove home the lesson that none of us are truly alone. The enormity of this moment has led me to be especially reflective on my life and path. While I have plenty of stories of things that happened to me personally and professionally that taught me a lesson or brought me some insight, it has always been people that have influenced me the most. In college, it was my professor of philosophy of the law that opened my eyes to lawyers as being potential agents of change. In law school, it was my criminal practice clinic professor, Stephen Nielsen, Wendy Kaplan, and David Rossman, that helped me bring my theory to practice. I still vividly remember my first trial in the clinic program. I remember the terror of preparation and the exhilaration of the trial, which I lost. I never imagined losing something, but still wanting to do it more. Working with a real client and having a real trial court. My first years as a new public defender, I had 3 wonderful mentors explaining legal issues and cases, including the arcane ones, with ease. I had a lawyer who was always able to connect with the client in ways that allowed information and trust to flow. And I had a mentor who was always able to have a jury wrapped with attention to their hopes each one. There were many more, of course, but in my early days, I absorbed as much of these 3 that I could. And I do like to think that there's so much of them in how I lawyer. And as much as there was a calling for me to represent indigent people charged with crimes and to try and make the world a better place through that, I also found myself continually gravitating to supervising and teaching. It always felt right to me to help future lawyers in the ways that I was helped along the way. Selfishly, I really enjoy it, and I always think it made me a better lawyer as a whole. But I also think it's incredibly important for lawyers to be thinking about issues, to be getting encouragement to be reflective in their own practice, to challenge themselves, to connect with the people that they're doing the work for, to be reminded that we don't do this work in a vacuum, that we do this for people and communities, that it is all right to get frustrated with the work and disappointing outcomes, but not to be defeated by the frustration. I try to recognize and model that we should find enjoyment in the hard things that we do, and to be able to share laughter with colleagues when we can. That is hopefully a little bit of insight into who I am and how I think. But I also know that you want to know what kind of judge I would be if I am fortunate enough to have you vote for me to become one. To that I say, I hope to be one that is, of course, fair and impartial. One that over time does not forget what it was like to be a lawyer, or what litigants experience when they are in the courtroom, whether they are in front of the judge or waiting for their case to be called. One that is good-natured and good-humored, but never at the expense of somebody else. One that is mindful of my own unconscious bias and work to eliminate it. To make sure that the outcome I believe to be just in the moment is also just and adequate over time. One that engages to make sure I truly hear the litigants and make sure I see the whole of a person and not just the label, and that the parties, whether it be civil, criminal, whether they're represented or pro se, know that to me, their case is the most important case in the world while I'm hearing. I'm one who will enjoy the work of being a judge from my first day to my 5,000. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We'll begin the questioning, with Councilor, typically to my right, Councilor Jacobs.
Well, hello, it's good to see you again. Thank you for coming out and meeting with me and for the time for a really rich discussion about many things. So I do have some questions I want to ask you, but actually I want to start from you already finished in your statement. Because the district court can be a very, busy, quick-paced court. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts about how you intend to, as a judge in district court, both be effective in administering justice in the kind of pace the district court demands, but to do it, what are your thoughts on how you can show up and do that work in a way that, in the other side of the bench is felt, as if people are being seen and heard, what specifically in what you do.
Sure. I think the experience I have with my career as a public defender and professor helped me look at people individually all the time. And that's what you've always done, to treat everybody with as much attention as I can, because I'm their voice in the court. It's a different perspective, but it's I think the same mindset in that that's what I'm doing. I'm focusing on one task at a time and doing as well as I can with the parties and going to the next. I think it's also very important to be self-reflective. I talk a lot about paternal well-being, general, just be judging, have to be mindful of well-being as well. And when they find that they're, I imagine we have mind your wandering, to be afraid, make sure that you reflect on what you're doing, so that their full attention is not.
I appreciate that. I feel like it needs to be very intentional from the outset, and then each day reaffirmed, because it can become, as years pass, to sort of stay in that place of seeing people before you as the individuals that are. I do think you're going to bring a unique experience, I think, that hopefully will keep you grounded in that space. Your application throughout, has so much rich little nuggets throughout on your perceptions around, structural racism, the bias in the courts, outcomes based on privilege. I want to focus in on one particular story that you found in your private practice versus representing those who have financial means are a very different place than when you're some of your private clients, but you shared a story specifically about someone who coming from a background of more economic support and privilege, the outcomes being just so distinctly different than your norm when you're representing sort of the I just want to give you an opportunity to speak to that and your questions from that.
Sure, so that particular case, this client was a white, came from a upper middle class family, had a lot of support, even though at the time was, pretty deep, substance abuse problem. And that substance abuse problem wound up having been charged with 3 separate courts, over time. So I had in one court, he got another charge, another charge. And to each time I was able to get him released on bail, and the outcomes I was able to get from each of those courts was I would suggest it was incredibly good. He was on probation for a short period of time. Many of the more serious cases were dismissed. And in my writing out of the application, I noted that while I always think prosecutors and judges are doing their level best to be fair and impartial, and look at everybody's name. In this case, it just struck me that had this person have been a person of color or a more disadvantaged population, I was really concerned that I was not going to have the same outcomes, that somehow the unconscious bias would be, I don't think anybody was going to overtly favor him. I think it was perhaps a concern of mine that the unconscious bias would be a little bit easier for me to get a better outcome for him than I would see in my other cases.
I appreciate the awareness around that, right? Because that's the line is sort of like recognizing sort of what's happening on multiple levels. That's the first step towards diagnosing actually having actually different outcomes going forward. And I think it was question 74, which is a question about really just asking you to articulate why you want to become a judge. And in answering that, you spoke about how you feel, and this sort of follows out of what we were talking about, but you feel that judges can help usher more equitable and fairness into the adversarial system. So I'd love to hear you articulate more about what you're talking about there, but what difference what change you could bring, or what ideally aspirationally you'd like to be.
Sure. And that speaks to a line that I was talking about, that I think judges need to pay attention to sort of justice in individual cases, but also make sure it fits over time. I think a pretty clear evidence that there is a significant disparate impact on outcomes for Black and brown people in particular, poor people in particular, and that was noticed by Justice Gans and Harvard study. And the prison population is skewed. And so we, if I were meeting the judge, it would be important to make sure we are understanding the impact over time our decisions really have. What we can do about that, obviously, is law. We're still a law thinker, but the framework that which JC gave us in Commonwealth versus Guam, we talk about other challenges to protection, and certainly I think that there could be other more creative ways to attack issues of this baked in disparate outcome that judges can take advantage of, assuming the litigants, the defense attorneys and prosecutors are raising these issues, litigating them fully before the entirety of the system he spoke about.
In the further question, you talk about how one of the strengths of the district court is that you are more able to be creative and individualized in how you handle treating an individual employee, which means incarceration or there's so many other options, diversionary options. Can you speak to that a little more?
Sure. So, particularly at the district court level, jail is not the first answer to pretty much anything there. And sometimes it must be an answer, but it is not certainly the first. And so for a lot of the people the district court sees, there's this intersection of mental health issues, substance abuse issues, homelessness, where it's an issue of most resources that the court can put to it. And I think the court over the last number of years has gotten a lot better about partnering with community partners, creating specific specialty courts, whether it's veterans court or drug court or mental health court, that also partners more strongly with probation departments and resources. And I think figuring out what's going to work for the individual in front of the court is a challenge, but something that the judges uniquely has a unique perspective for to do, because we can put, the goal is rehabilitation. Getting people over the issues that are weighing on them in the community, really.
So, last question. So, I had a bunch of different possible options, but honestly, your answer leads me to a whole area that I didn't have written down, but I think is kind of a little central point there, which is the community resources, right? So you're practicing more often in Western Mass than anywhere else. I am out representing Western Mass. The resource question is the crux of where, the barrier to fully availing our justice system of options when, we'd love to see, send somebody to some, substance abuse or mental health. Both of those have very limited, and in some pockets, some niche pockets of the population, literally 0 beds available, 0, clinical opportunities. What are your thoughts around how we can do better in the state to, have a level of equity around, that's available by region to really do better? Because the opioid epidemic is just as strong, the mental health, challenges are just as acute. And
So the problem is there are never enough resources for any of these things, whether it's sort of immediate beds, help somebody detox or a mental health crisis, or longer term community. Talking about this yesterday on the phone. Both those areas need to, I think, have more resources poured into it. I'm not a legislator, I've never did that. I would hope that we can see the problem and perhaps more resources and funding to it. But when that doesn't happen, I think the courts still need to deal with it because it's still coming to the courts. And I think, again, that's why a lot of the specialty courts have arisen to kind of force, for lack of a better word, resources that are partly to the courts and probation departments, and some police departments, to make sure that people get some aid outside of the court system. If I had an easy solution to this, I would certainly suggest it, but I probably would have.
very much appreciate your answer. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Pereira.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So when you applied, did you apply for a certain region? What was the post
For a certain,
region of the district court?
I think there were a number of openings at the time, district court openings, and I applied for them. Worcester having had, I think, 2 or 3 openings.
And how far outside of Worcester do you live?
That was great.
Really? You think it's important for people that become judges to be familiar with their geographical area?
I do. I think it gives better insight, in particular to things like potential resources. And other,
What's your understanding how it works now? Because it's not clear to me. It used to be that, not that long ago, the governor's office would post, we're gonna fill the Fall River post, the New Bedford post, or Worcester post. And generally, that person would be assigned to the area regionally, region 1, region 2. Do you still think it works that way, that if you were to get confirmed, you would sit in that general area?
I don't know that I have the insight to tell you that. What I've heard is that Worcester has a lot of judges right now, and so I don't know that I'll wind up there as an immediate posting. But beyond that, I don't know that.
I heard you mention Commonwealth versus law. What's your experience with that, and what do you think the ramifications are?
So I've litigated a couple of Commonwealth versus long motions. I find it, I think, generally difficult to present the evidence to demonstrate whether or not there was some sort of unconscious bias that led to perhaps stop or church. Without the statistics, and I keep great statistics on this, the Commonwealth versus long allows us to sort of look at other facts to determine whether, for a judge to determine whether or not there was unconscious bias or overt bias. I generally don't think overt bias is the problem. I think again, it's sort of disparate act over time, but people don't realize that they are perhaps using factors that they should.
So, my understanding about what was law, and correct me if your understanding is different, but say someone has a broken taillight and they get stopped by the police. If they're a certain color or race, do you get to have a second look at whether there was a bias involved in the case? Is that true?
Well, it's not automatic. The race of the driver doesn't necessarily get you into a Commonwealth versus long argument.
Yeah, so what are the criteria that you have to show to get a hearing?
There has to be some other factors there that you can point to the court to suggest that race had some factor in either the stop or further search.
So in your experience, what are the factors been to get a second look at whether the police had some kind of bias?
So getting the hearing and getting a ruling favorable out of the hearing is repeated things.
All right.
I have not heard, frankly, of many successful Commonwealth versus law arguments about this. To get the hearing, it tends to be some, in the case I have, the police officer pulled up the card of under his aegis term of the driver, finding out that person was a black male with a record. And so I suggested that was unconscious bias for elevating the length of the stop and ultimately the officer to the driver. I did not successfully. That would be.
So you get it, like, and I'm, like I said, I did 30 years of law enforcement, but, I haven't seen it play out in the court itself. And I'm just wondering, so in that case, it was just based on race, and you said you got a hearing, but you didn't prevail.
I did not prevail in the hearing. I will say that particular officer was fantastic. He was honest. He engaged with me a little bit of whether or not he had an unconscious bias or not. He did. And the judge, whether it would matter.
At that point, you get to delve into the officer's history of motor vehicle stops and what is proportion of stopping different races and things like that.
You could. It didn't in that particular case, but certainly if this sort of available, we can use those.
What do you think of the way the Bush Commission has turned out?
Can't say I'm following them incredibly closely. I think it's important for their standards and I think having the transparency of potential discipline if those standards aren't followed. It's important for the community as a whole, but I can't say that I've been watching exactly what they're doing.
Are you familiar with the way that police departments report its posts?
I'm not.
So I can tell you, when for certainty that if you look back at how many, big cities reported officers being, violated certain rules and regulations. You'll see that some large cities said 2 or 3, and some small towns said 15. Because of the way it was interpreted, what they were supposed to put in, so if someone called them sick and they said, oh, the officer wasn't really sick. Or someone ran a race horse plate or license plate. Those people got reported. And some big cities, other cities, and I know this firsthand, just generally reporting officers were being untruthful. So I see that as an issue of the way it's played out and the way how some officers were unfairly targeted and certain others just got away with it. And I was just wondering if you had experience with that.
No, yeah, I don't know that I've been following it closely enough, but certainly if there's a status in how local officers and particular departments would be treated, that's something that we need to address.
We all in this room try to advocate for people in our geographical area to get more of a process. So when I call some people in Worcester about you, it's usually not waiting for people in my to get the nod too. And this guy better be really good, and then like Joe, he's really good. So, you have the not approved by Brian DeAndre, the clerk magistrate over there, and others. Then when I saw your resume, I'm like, there's no way to really attack this. But you didn't have to kill all these trees.
It's the one thing I've never been is the environment.
I've never seen such a packet, so it's very well organized and you have a great amount of support. Your counsel to my left is a big supporter. You know, everything I've read about you from academia and from the GA himself to people on both all over the map in the criminal justice field. Say you have a great demeanor and I can tell that today. Sizing you up myself and glad that we can see eye to eye. But I think you gotta make a great judge and you have my support. Absolutely.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council, for any questions. On me.
First of all, I want to thank Councilor Jacobs for being so gracious to relinquish being chair of this hearing for Councilor DePalo. I think that was very nice. Okay, no question. So having said that, thank you for the time you've given me. I really, that's very important for me to meet you. You probably 1,010 in my meeting, okay, from parole with you judge in my career. And it's very important to me because I'm going for a whole person. And I want to meet with you. I want to look in your eyes. I want to know how you grew up in your family. Did you have a silver spoon in your mouth when you were born? All of that. And you met all of that criteria. So I thank you. And you got the belt to waffle, so that, you know, has nothing to do with the vote, but it's nice that you did. First of all, I want to ask you, you have applied 5 times. And, you know, I understand the process because I understand political people jump the line a lot of times. I've seen that so often in my 25 years. And sometimes good attorneys just go away and never apply again. So I want to thank you for applying. And I'm not sure I should even say it. Lear Ames, wonderful, wonderful job. I think, I'm not sure, but I think it was 3 times that she did. So some people go by the wayside after they think they have the job and they've met with the governor and someone in area gets the job, literally it turns them on. So thank you for receiving. Now tell me, I'm curious to know, I think I can guess, in the governor's work in 2013, when you applied to the Fitchburg into the Clinton district courts.
So I think that was Governor Patrick's.
That was Patrick. Okay, in 16, the Worcester, Woburn, Chelsea, Plymouth, district, you can say, we'll see.
So I think that one, I'm not even this number.
Okay, it said recommended by the JNC, it said no.
I'm sorry, so
I'm trying to think if it was still captured.
No, the last time I, applied, for this one was Baker, in the agency, that it was also the end of his term and needed to change.
A lot of them dropped off, and I've got so many calls because it was unfortunate because of the end of Bakers. There were people that really, they had that judgeship. And that was the end of it. So, there's been a lot of things that I've been unhappy with. So thank you for, for persisting. When, you've had a lot of experience with different cases, what has been the most rewarding outcome of a case that you've had? Is there anything that stands out?
So there's no one that stands out. I mean, I always find it really rewarding when I can work with a client in a meaningful way, and get an outcome that, meets their expectations of what should happen. And all too often, and clients do have, bad experiences with authority, court system, but when we've lived in for a long time, and help them navigate the really scary system in a way that gets them, whether it's guilty, whether it's probation, whether it's.
How about Lugano?
Well, I mean, I would suggest, all I do is provide as a public defender. We get your salary, but it's,
Well, your writing that you submitted was very interesting to me, especially, where it involved, a police, with the state trooper.
he was in, yes, not doing station.
Yeah, tell me about that. I know, and I was, it's really interesting.
So it got complicated, but essentially it was an off-duty police officer, seeing a situation where he inserted himself, as a police officer without sufficient, probable cause to do so. And that was the request of the argument of the judge.
So the purpose of the hearing was,
So the motion to suppress both the statements, made by my client and the evidence that the officer.
can you explain that, how that happens? How can you, how did you proceed with that?
So, whenever there's an issue of a constitutional level like that, if we raise the issue where it's been suggested that because it was a constitutional violation of either a search or a seizure, or frankly, that violation of Miranda as well, argue to the judge that because the extreme laws requires suppression of this information because of the violation, and that's here, I suggested to the judge that it was.
It wasn't favorable for your client?
He was very favorable.
So what did you prove? Is there person's attorney?
What did I prove?
Yeah, how did you, disprove?
So, it's actually, I don't know that I proved or disproved anything. I think I highlighted the problem with what the officer did. And that the prosecutor, the Commonwealth couldn't prove the to the judge.
I know, but.
Sure, no, that it was a permissible questioning of my client, a permissible seizure with him before he began questioning.
So, in your, experience, what do you feel is the most important attribute that you can bring as a judge to the court?
So I think they're related. I think it's both compassion and listening, active listening. It's very important for judges to be able to hear and understand the arguments of both parties, and whether they're represented by counsel or pro se. I think it's important to just pay attention to that.
Did you get involved in 209As?
To the extent that my clients are accused of violating 209As, yes. Occasionally, we will also deal with the 209A if it's somehow related to another case we really have. That's
Did you get involved this while we had the pandemic and you didn't see them in person?
I did not deal with any dual venue hearings while the pandemic was going on, though my clients did
Oh,
sometimes charged
The
with
reason I say that, I was very concerned during the COVID period. Because to me, for a judge to be on the phone with someone, you know, that is being accused of that violation. My opinion, I think you should be able to see them in person, look in their eyes, see see how they move, see their energy to know. And that really bothered me during COVID, because there were courts that were hearing 209As and, on the phone. And I thought, how could they really know if they were judging this person the right way? That person might very well have been guilty of continuing to do that. And why I was so concerned about that is, that's why I came on the council. Because I didn't know what the governance council was, I had no idea. But I had a friend that was in a relationship, a very dangerous relationship. And her boyfriend was physically abusive to the point that she gave her life. She went to court 7 times. She wanted the judge to put him away. So the 8th time, my late husband was a firefighter, he had police officer friends, so he had one of the police officers go with her. And he said to the judge, he fears for her life, $300,000. The judge gave him 200. He turned to my friend, and she did it. A week later, she was dead. He killed us. And what stayed in my mind was what the judge said to her that day. He said, you have come here, this is your 8th time, and you have taken up my time and taken up the court's time, wasted our time. That's when I found out what the governance council was about. So the strangest thing about it is very important to me. Unfortunately, sometimes vindictiveness, they get blamed and feel it. But these real ones that took my friend's life is very concerning to me. So I don't know how many cases they've had over the phone, but I did a little research and there were courts that were doing it. And we'll never know how many of them were real or not real. So I'm glad you can do it during that time, so when you have to discuss that. So, so you have been a lawyer, how many years?
34.
That's what I want. That's what I want. I want someone like you that has had all types of cases. You've had violent cases, to this, you know, state trooper, but, you know, I'm impressed with your background. I was impressed with you. Because I look for compassion, and I saw that, and I saw when you talked about your family and how much that meant to you. So I'm very pleased that you persisted and that you continue to apply, because I know there are some people out there in that court that are unqualified. If their father was a judge, or their friends here, or whatever, and it bothers me. And I can't do anything about it. But by the time I get here, I have voted for good people. And if I voted no, I told people publicly why. Because people have to know, you just don't say no, you have to know why, and you have to have reasonable, you know. So, again, thank you for applying, and I'm very happy with the government in the future. And I wish you all success. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Council, I know.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. And you've been involved with the committee for public counsel service for 25 plus years. And you supervised a lot of young attorneys coming into the office. What do you do, excuse me, in the situation where the other judge, so-and-so court is confirmed, you don't know what court you're going to. And now you have a case, so I'm operating, okay? And you don't know either side, the defense attorney or the, lawyer representing, the conflict. What do you, do if you have an inclination that the, Committee for Public Service Council, that they're involved, they're representing, what do you call it, they're representing the defense. And you know, the prosecutor is the young prosecutor, you can just tell, he hasn't been out of school long, could be his first year. And now, I'll bring in the, it doesn't prove the element of a public way. And you know, guys, you just heard the crowd, in your heart, you know, this guy's guilty. But you also know that the prosecutor, at least you believe, this could be just like first case, second, even around one time. Now, the defense attorney, files, makes an oral motion for required finding not guilty, and improve the evidence. But as soon as he said that, the prosecutor, excuse me, judge, excuse me, can I make a motion to open up the case? What do you do in that situation?
I think that they were arrested, at that point, and not putting their thumb on the scale, like, if their motion to reopen is denied, and, they didn't prove it, and
Now the trial's over, the defendant's been found not guilty. Case over. Do you do anything? What's my point? Do you call the, what do you call it, the prosecutor in, I mean, in, hey, you're doing a great job. Do you say anything to him or let it go? So you're gonna supervise all your years, and these guys screwed up, but you probably did a good job.
So I've always appreciated when judges have, talked to me after a trial or a significant motion, and given me some feedback, and I'm certainly not be open to talking to any of colleagues about it.
When you say open, he's not gonna come to you, he or she's not gonna come to you, would you say, hey, Joe, come here for a second.
If I don't know them, I don't know that I'm gonna necessarily reach out to them, I suspect I'm gonna be a detective judge with people who are comfortable with the company.
I think that's how, he's a guy who's nervous, his first and second case, he's gonna, hey, Judge, when I'm home, you're, for a cup of coffee, can you pull the water and talk? I doubt it.
Well, I mean, I'm hoping they have supervisors who make suggestion, I hope the clerks in my courtroom might make a suggestion.
You might think about it, I asked that question, well, I would think more often than not, people in that chair say, yeah, when the trial's over, I called the lawyer over and basically said, hey, we did a good job, but, yeah, I guess that was a proactive on the judge, because if I see it 5 years from now, I'm gonna say, hey, any of those people are coming out. And I can say, Judge, have a cup of coffee in the lobby, give me a summation of how I did it, and nobody's nervous.
So, I mean, maybe, I guess I'm mindful of not calling people in who don't necessarily wanna hear what I have to tell them.
I'd say that in a nice way.
Yeah, no, I
Everything now.
But I've also said what's here in other counties, we have sort of this advanced trial skills program where we I think demystify talking to judges with newer lawyers. And I would hope that in any jurisdiction that I'm in, that they're aware that I'm very open to talk.
Myself, I think they'd like to hear from the judge, but that's just me. What's your position on continuances?
I have to weigh it, obviously.
Well, what was your word? Tell me, what was the factors there?
Well, I mean, I guess how cases, particularly whether or not.
What do I have to do? It's either one, but it's not a situation where the defendant is in jail, and it's not no issues like that. And that's 2 years old. So that's what continuance. What factors are you going to consider?
Well, I mean, I guess I would need to know whether the reason for the continuance was.
Another case, I got another case, in another court.
Is this on the trial or is it a pre-trial? I need to know the sort of status of the case.
Okay, sure. In your case, it's a trial. And let me change the hypo. Your case is a trial, and it's, oh, I'm gonna even backtrack. If I would file a motion for continuance, it says, I'm going on vacation in a week. And A, it's an agreed upon motion. And it's been on 4 times, and the previous judge has an order of no further continuances. That's what happened.
It's an agreed upon continuance, and your client's not in custody, that's,
Pretty simple, super.
yeah, I mean, that seems like a new bring her the grant.
Do you make the parties commit to the court?
I know different courts have different procedures on how to advance a case like that, so I have to understand the procedure of that particular court.
So if a particular court, the judge before, like I said, has an order, no further continuance, that's the chief of that court. You just told me it's a no-brainer that you're not gonna follow the chief. But on this situation, whether to come in or not, you are gonna follow. It doesn't seem
The
consistent.
procedure is different than the merits, I think, and the procedure of how to get something done in the courthouse has a lot to do with how the clerk's office runs. And how the,
I'm using that. What's the difference? Why is it so important for the parties to come in? You have a case in Worcester District Court, hold on. And I live in Everett, Linfield. So long, you know how long it took you to get here? Well, I'm gonna try to take that back and make sure we were, we speak and stuff. It's gonna take an hour. I got a agreed upon motion to continue this case. And I gotta go all the way to Worcester, I gotta wait around, come all the way back, busy. I'm not on the table, with all due respect, the way you are, whether you go, people like you know, are, then we can pay anyway. I don't get it, why, to me, it's a no-brainer.
so if you're asking me if I was the chief of a court, I would absolutely make people come in to do a motion to continue. But I know that the judges didn't see the file in certain courtrooms unless the procedures followed for that particular court. So it's, for example, in Worcester District Court, the judge will not see my motion to continue unless I am there shuttling it through to the courtroom. So it's not so much a decision of the judge, it's a decision of how it is in front of the judge.
So you're telling me that in Worcester, if somebody files a motion, in this case, a continuance, but the judge doesn't even know about it, he's on the bench, unless the parties come in,
That's normally the way it works.
what's your feeling on that? Your personal feeling?
I would love to have spent less time waiting around in the courtroom on a agreed upon motion to continue.
Wow, that seems to me, you know, more and more courts, it's so different. In my unofficial, if I was a pollster, when I'm not, I'd say about 3/4 of the courts are, is granted. And people don't like it when the judge says, come on in, and you gotta wait around, and guess who gets hurt? The defendant, we gotta charge them more money now, because it was that important for you to see the defense attorney and the prosecutor in person. I personally think it's that crazy. I don't know. What's your position on, I'm not talking to try, any type of motion to do it by Zoom?
An evidentiary motion or a motion just purely on legal arguments? I mean,
You tell me.
well, I would think an evidentiary motion, I would like to have, I'm gonna be a fact finder making the decision, I'd like to have the person in my courtroom.
And why is that? Give me an example.
It's sort of how Counselor Leo, Delaney was talking, that I think as a fact finder, I have a better time of assessing credibility rather than proceeding.
Okay, what about, case management conference, to get a status of the case?
And that, again, to me, in attorney time is really important for them to manage, and if it's management, free trial, frankly, even if it's a legal argument, over June, I think would be fine for me.
Yeah, I can see a trial, if you want to come in person. I'm just trying to get a sense, what you all, I mean, how that's a good experience. Would you ever go to the chief and say, chief, he considers, I know I'm the new guy on the block, just became judge in the last 6 months. But I've had a couple of cases with continuances, I know that's your policy. Is that something that we could be flexible, or you could be flexible, you ever do that, or?
I've never been shy about talking to people above me about what I think.
Is that something you might do? If you go to a court, because you could be in this court, that court, this, was that something you might do? No, at least I'm getting the impression that you feel like me, that continuances, especially where it's agreed upon by both sides. Is that something you think you go to, chief?
I would have no problem talking to the first justice or the chief about it and what effect it will have. Certainly not something I guess we could do.
Okay. I think that's it. I think that's all the questions. We clearly have the experience. But again, just be cognizant of those people who work for themselves, the sole practitioner. Remember, you didn't have to worry at your present job about paying rent, paying the secretary, the paralegal, the lights. These people who work for themselves, it's a struggle out there, it's tough. We all know with inflation and everything else, everything costs more. So sometimes it's tough for these attorneys to make it, it's difficult out there. And, you know, I hope you at least think about it. I don't have any further questions. Your counsel has been great. I mean, he's the strongest on the on your behalf. No, I mean, you know, I mean, what I would say, the council DePalo is a strong support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Counselor. Counselor Duff.
Thank you. I reiterate that he is a very strong supporter of yours. And also what Councilor Ionello just said is, you know, the sole practitioner faces different challenges than a CPCS attorney who faces their own challenges, of course, of time and financial constraints, but then attorneys for a big firm. And what they are going to request and need sometimes are real things, and they need them and they request them because that's how they best represent their clients. And for a judge, that's probably, to his point, I think one of the most important things you can be cognizant of. You know, I've heard these fellows say, and when we had female attorneys here as well, over the years that, you know, it's hard to be in two places at once. And it's also hard when you get somewhere and then you've got to wait a long time for your client's case to be heard. I mean, someone's got to get paid for that time. And a lot of times these clients, you know, it's a financial strain on them. So I backed him up on that. It's very important to know that, because you're going to be in the people's court if you go sent to the bench. I'm a big fan of CPCS, everybody knows that. I don't think the attorneys that are paid enough. I don't think the ADAs are paid enough. But you guys really are doing your own work, and I appreciate it. I found, I'm not gonna, you know, go over everything we talked about. We had a robust conversation, and my colleagues have done a great job asking me questions. I do want to say that this very last case that, in your application, Commonwealth versus NS, this to me is an absolutely fascinating case. So, you know, you clearly, you know, as I've said many times, you know the law, you know how to use Westlaw, you know how to look things up like that. I think Councilor Jacobs already touched on a lot of the issues that I'm concerned about, which she is as well, you know, the lack of beds and programs for folks who are addicted that need them. It will be a continuous fight, I think, that we have in fight indeed, because I don't think it's the top of mind issue anymore. I do want to ask you, and you did speak a little bit about it, what's your experience working with folks in the LGBTQ plus community?
So I've had several clients, in a variety of different types of cases. I have both in custody, jails, as well as out of jail. There are obviously some unique issues that go along with that. And we're talking about there's gonna be seeing really important, ensure that they are addressed by their correct pronouns, by the correct meaning. In the case I wrote about in my application, where physically transitioning along to match their gender identity. So it's not a lot of different aspects of living.
And these are very challenging issues for many of us, but they're real issues. I'm not mostly, but I am gravely concerned about our youth. That, the intersection of LGBTQ youth living on the streets and becoming crime involved, is something we need as a society, I believe, to do better at. And as a judge, you do have some ability to maybe, I don't know if you can really change the trajectory of somebody's life, but to try to. It's very hard for these young people if they've been rejected at home, if they don't feel safe in a foster home or in a homeless shelter. And they're on the streets. It's a very dangerous world to be in, and it, as you all know, I mean, I'm telling you something you all know, but it can propel itself into crime, into drugs, into addiction, into prostitution, into many things that, no good comes from, as they say. How about the disabilities community? Have you ever represented a client or had interactions with clients who are either physically or mentally disabled or challenged in some capacity?
Yes, all of the above. And I had people, older individuals in wheelchairs. I've had more clients diagnosed with some sort of significant mental health issues than I can count. You have clients in substance abuse, all kinds.
Yeah.
It raises different issues, obviously, challenges, but particularly for attorneys, it really means a lot of extra work to make sure that they understand the partnership and the attorney. I think this is really obvious. And I think the judge is really also really important that makes some really great judges who are able to.
I think a lot of our judges and chiefs are doing a really great job with everything on the plates to address some of these issues. I do have concern that, not enough of our public buildings, including our courts, are as accessible as they should be, not just for, mobility, but eyes and ears as well, because as you and I spoke about, it's not them that are disabled, it's us. It's all of us. We're aging. We will lose some of our abilities, and I think we just need to do better. And the more people who are sitting on the bench are aware of it, you do have some ability to advocate for those changes. And again, it's just, I say some of these things aloud, just so we're saying them aloud, so people hear it over and over. The last group of folks, and we talked a little bit about this, is, I grew up with a sister who had Down syndrome. And if you met her, you immediately could tell she had a disability. I can tell you because I was her guardian and we spent a lot of time together. We did a couple of cross-country road trips and things that I am sure on more than one occasion, she snitched a Snickers bar or something at, the 7-Eleven or something like that. And, and the thing is, yeah, we all in and it's cute and everything, but it's not okay. And so there were many conversations, we had with her. Some folks like that, either with that type of challenge or maybe on the spectrum, may commit a crime, maybe not as serious, maybe more serious. And it's hard for them to understand sometimes what's actually why it's a crime or it's not okay. And have you any experience with that?
Yes, I mean, sometimes you can tell in police report when it's a situation like that, some officers are really good at picking up those things. But other times it's a matter of sitting with the client and figuring out, just by the sheer time of spending talking to them, that there is perhaps whether there are opposite spectrums, just minorly or something more significant. And then I think those particular cases also having a really good relationship with prosecutors makes a world of difference, because it,
Yeah.
the defense attorney is able to explain it to a prosecutor and demonstrate it. I think there's often, well, they're the right thing.
And that's what we want. I always say it doesn't absolve you of crime, but it does mean that you need to be treated differently sometimes, and the punishment should suit the crime in the circumstance of the person that committed the crime, which is a little bit different. I'm not black and white on some of this stuff, which is also hard for a lot of the judges, because you're kind of given, you can do this or you can do that. And so what I like, and I think we talked a little bit about this, is, when you are able to have some creativity in your sentencing, and you might be able to, and you might not, you might try it and you might get struck down. But, I like big, bold ideas. I like people who will try new things. That's how we learn, that's how we grow, and sometimes they don't work, and sometimes they do work. And, I thank you for your work with CPCS. I think it's very, very important work, and, that's all my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Council. Council Kennedy.
I know we got about an hour's worth.
I was hoping for more.
Were you doing a clinical program about influence already?
Yeah, so he and I coach a lot, 1L experiential learning.
Are you still doing
This is the first semester we're not doing it, he's beginning.
it? Is he still there?
He's still there, but he's heading toward.
I graduated 41 years ago from DC, and he taught me. We've been there a long time. A long time. Just to follow up on something Council Iannello said about continuances, he kept saying, well, it's agreed upon, it's agreed upon. What if it's not agreed upon? You know?
Again, I'm of the mind that attorneys know their time and know their cases, and if you're asking for a continuance and your client's not in custody, then I'm likely to grant it.
Have you ever heard the term justice with dignity and speed?
I've heard it.
It's the mission statement of the trial court. I asked Ralph Ganstaff when he was here one time, he said it sounded familiar. You know this, and I know that Lisa knows this, right now there's a big push on, especially in the district courts, time standards. It comes around every 4 or 5 years, all of a sudden everybody's pushing, we're gonna get these cases done in a certain amount of time. We gotta get them done, that they're outside the time standards, we can't give continuances because it's a year and a day as opposed to a year. How do you feel about time standards?
So as a defense attorney who often works with prosecutors, I think we know our cases, lawyers know their cases well, they know when they're ready for trial and when they're ready for hearings. And I think we appreciate it as lawyers and judges recognize.
You need more time.
That's not ready for whatever reason.
Right. You know, it's, I quoted that statement, justice with dignity and speed, because all of a sudden speed is, trumping justice and dignity. It's just about moving cases, period. And I don't think that's how a criminal justice system should work at all, okay? I'm probably one of the biggest offenders in terms of time standards. And it's not intentional because I'm busy. You're gonna get a lot of pressure when you're on the bench. To move cases, move cases, move cases. That first justice of that court that you're sitting in is gonna be really mad at you when you, continue the case. It's outside of the time standard. You're gonna push back.
People are often always mad at me.
Me too. That's how,
So,
we're not finding one at home,
right,
okay? We're finding one at work.
if you're hiring me to do this job, I'm gonna do the job that I think is just. And if the just answer is that the case needs to be continued, that's what you need to do.
I showed up in the court one day about maybe 6, 8 months ago. And I was with counsel for a while. It was his case. I was assisting him in the case. And I needed a continuance. We needed a continuance. You know why we needed a continuance? Because we had to be hearing. Okay? We had some hearings on. And the judge, who's relatively new, said, and you'll tell you this, I'm sorry, Mr. Kennedy. If you want a continuance, you have to go down to the first justice. That's her rule. And I said, no. I said, bring a jury up, we'll get it done by 12. And we did, okay? Because she denied it. So there's no point, just bring it up right now. But to me, it's just silly that you don't take an oath to uphold time standards. You take an oath to uphold the Constitution. And upholding the Constitution is making sure that the lawyer's ready, because if he's not, that's a different issue. And it's making sure that, if he's telling you if he's ready or not, he is she, okay? And it's making sure that, it's done in a timely manner, but time standards shouldn't be trumping justice in the area. That judge later on, when I talked to him a couple of months later, he said, I never let that happen again, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, just no. You know, and you should, you're not there to follow local rules that you refer to, you're there to be a judge. Period. And we'll be voting for you next week. And, Councilor DePalo did jump in and he, muscled, Councilor Jacobs out of the way because he wanted to hear, because they thought you're going to be very important to him, because very overlapping districts, he was supposed to hear, because you're in, Council Jubalo's district, I believe, what would have been his district. So I think he can be a great judge. And I'll vote for you next week.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Councilor. Good afternoon. Heard a lot today from my colleagues. So I'll just put a point on a couple of things I heard. First off, Councilor Ferreira, I think like most of my colleagues, is a tremendous advocate for his region, and I appreciate that very much. He brought up, his background, and he brings value to this council as having a career in law enforcement. It's one of the reasons that it's great to see in this copious packet of letters, many ADAs, retired ADAs, folks who've been elevated to the bench. I saw Justice Hodgins on there, and including a letter from our own district attorney in Worcester, Joseph Early. And I'm really grateful to this governor to be making appointments that are bringing a little bit of balance that wasn't always there between prosecutorial backgrounds and defense attorney backgrounds. And I know that there's outstanding attorneys in the application pool from District Attorney Early's office, and I'm sure from other district attorneys' offices across the Commonwealth. So I'm very grateful to the governor and to the chief legal counsel and deputy legal counsel for bringing balance to their decisions and their nominations. And the other thing I just want to highlight is something that my colleague Councilor Devaney mentioned, is you've applied multiple times. Many attorneys come to me asking about the status of their application, advice about their application. And the whole process is fraught with uncertainty and with self-consciousness, wondering how folks are interpreting their application, wondering what they are in the process. And it's what I constantly iterate is that it's a long process, it's a patient process. And many of our very best judges do not get through their first time online. So it does take multiple times for a lot of folks. And even the folks who do somehow get through it on the first time, it's a laborious process, as it should be, because as much as we'd love to see seats filled instantly, we know that it's incumbent on the governor's office and legal counsel office to be conducting diligence and giving us the very best people who are going to be there in many cases for decades. It's no secret I've been a supporter of your nomination. You're not my nominee per se. You residing in District 2, which is vacant right now after Councilor Jubalo became court magistrate. But I certainly look forward. It'll be my honor to put forward your nomination when we do meet for assembly, and I do intend to vote in the affirmative. And with that, this hearing is.